Pick, the CBS Sports NFL Draft Podcast. This is episode 64. I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. And today, With the First Pick Summer Scouting School is officially in session. Rick, that's right. You're going back to summer school. You're probably used to that from your high school days, huh?
High school, junior high, elementary school. I was the only kid that went 12 months a year.
Fair enough. And look where it got you. So it
got me fired and on the podcast.
With this idiot. That's all right. Fair enough. All right, kids. Do well in school during the school year so you don't have to go to summer school. This is different because we're starting with the quarterbacks, guys that you should definitely know. How does this class stack up against recent quarterback classes? Is there a clear-cut QB1 at this stage of the process? And after USC's Caleb Williams and UNC's Drake Maye, who are the names you should know ahead of the upcoming college football season, which is right around the corner? Guys who are on NFL teams' radars, but maybe the casual fan hasn't been alerted to yet. We got you covered on all that and more. And in case you missed it on the last podcast, Rick and I talked about the top 25 players, 25 and under, including our favorites in this rookie class coming up here to make the list next summer. Spoiler alert, they're both running backs. You can check that out in the feed as always. And by the way, Rick, looking ahead, our summer scouting school series will continue every week right up until the start of the college football season. And next Thursday, we are talking wide receivers. Another spoiler alert, Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah, it's I didn't pay attention to Debo's emails as usual and schedule, so I did all the running backs this weekend. So
well,
I will work, Debo, to make you proud that I will make sure the receivers are all done by the time we cover the 2024 receiver class next Thursday.
And also, if you're listening or watching on YouTube at NFL Draft CBS, here's something that's going to be fun. Or NFL CBS, excuse me. Here's something that you should look forward to. Not next Thursday, the following Thursday, I'll be out of town, and Rick will be hosting. So if you want to see Rick Spielman host the With the First Pick podcast, you see that face? He's smiling. He's nervous. So come back and watch that. I can't believe that you even care about that. But that'll be something that I look forward to tuning in for that. And finally, hit the old thumbs up if you're watching on the YouTubes. It really helps promote the pod to folks who might not otherwise know we exist. And don't forget to subscribe to the pod. And if you like what we do, think about leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. And to quote B-Mac and Pat P on All Things Covered, tell a friend about the pod. All right, Rick, let's get to it.
Can I ask a question first?
Of course you can.
You're going on vacation, but doesn't your computer go with you on vacation? You can't take an hour out of your time on vacation to do a podcast, a very important podcast, because it'll be the running backs and tight ends, I believe. But
that's an important question.
Yeah, and Debo did not identify, so we're doing 5 running backs and 5 tight ends.
Oh boy, here we go. He's already nervous, Debo.
So I don't know how it's going to work. I look at the schedule, and it's like offensive line. Is it like tackles, guards, centers? Is it the top 5? There's, again, no direction from Debo on the instructions, and I really, really like to have clarification on a lot of the stuff that we're doing.
Debo, here's what I've realized. When Rick gets nervous or uncertain about something, he lashes out. He really loves you, and he appreciates all the hard work you do. I'm not reading his list, but when he's uncertain about something, that's his.
I have 25 guys done for one show, and we're only going to talk about 5, but I don't know which 25 to talk about.
You said you're going to call me after July 4th, and we're going to get on the same page. You must have had too many Michelob Ultras. You didn't call me.
No, Debo told me that we're doing this independently so we can come up with comps, so I can rip your comps, but it's going to be hard today to do that.
Yeah, because you cheated off my paper, to quote the great Pete.
We didn't see each other's comps until this morning.
Moments ago. All right, let's get to it. Then let's talk about it. We'll sort out all the logistical stuff. Don't worry about it, Rick. We'll hold your hand through it. Like Pete likes to say, he held your hand all last year. Debo, hold your hand in year 2.
When I ran things, it was organized. It was to the T. Everything was outlined. Everybody knew exactly what everybody was doing, so there was no questions asked.
All right, Debo, do you want to tell Rick what you want to defend yourself before we move on?
I don't feel the need to be honest with you.
He's not going to dignify that with a response, Rick. I will get the books in order, as they say, before I leave. I will make sure everything's detailed, Rick, so you know all the I's have to be dotted and the T's crossed and where those need to happen. So don't you worry your sweet little head about it. Is that what Grandma used to say back in the day? Don't worry your sweet little head about it.
No,
all right, no.
From Ohio. No, we never said that.
It's probably a Southern thing. All right, let's do this. Summer prospect primer, as Debo has put it on the rundown. Let's start at the top here. This quarterback class feels pretty good in terms of if you're a team needing a quarterback. And let me ask you this. So in the summer, you sort of review some of these prospects as a group in an organization. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You start to kind of put them into categories, and then you'll start defining them as they get through the 2023 season. But you kind of get an idea of their skill set and kind of where they're going to fit in the draft. So,
and as a general manager, you have to, because it's your job, which guys' contracts are coming up, which guys you're not necessarily have to have good years on the team during the NFL season in order to hang around whatever role that may be. So you're also thinking ahead about roles that need to be filled. And the most important role, of course, is quarterback. Does this class feel to you, just on our cursory going through it over the last few weeks, not having seen them play clearly the 2023 season yet, that this class is deeper than recent classes at quarterback?
I don't know yet. I know there's 2 up above, and then it drops off after the first 2 we're going to talk about, and then it'll be a mad scramble on how the rest of them sort themselves out.
So a couple months ago, Bryce and CJ went 1 and 2, Anthony Richardson went 4, then Will Levis went 33, then Hendon Hooker went 68 to your Detroit Lions. I think this class is deeper than that class. I think clearly it's deeper than the Kenny Pickett class, which has a lot of question marks. Only Kenny Pickett was the first rounder. And then I think once you get to the 2021 class, it's Trevor Lawrence, first overall. Zach Wilson hasn't worked out. Trey Lance hasn't worked out because of injuries. Justin Fields is turning the corner. Mac Jones will have a chance to reprove himself with a new offensive coordinator. I think this class, as we sit here, hovers right around that 2021 class. There's going to be a clear-cut guy that goes first and has a chance to be a superstar. And there's some good quarterbacks, I think, that we've seen, but have some things to prove. Do you remember the year ahead of the Trevor Lawrence draft, that summer? Was there a lot of buzz about Zach Wilson in the room, or he had some things to prove?
He didn't play well his junior year.
Yeah.
He created his buzz his senior year, or
Right.
the year he came out. So it was like Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Look at him the year before he came out. He was probably considered a 4th, 5th round pick.
Right.
Went on and did what he did and won a national championship and ended up being the first overall pick. So this summer series that we're doing is kind of giving you an idea of what is coming up, but it's by no stretch of the imagination what the end result will be. Just like if we would never have had a Joe Burrow as the top quarterback in a summer series before, if we were doing this 5 years ago, 4 years
No, that's right. In fact, I remember talking to Lloyd Cushenberry at the Senior Bowl, who was his center at LSU, and he said we got a sense in the bowl game, Joe Burrow's junior year, after he transferred from Ohio State because he couldn't beat out Dwayne Haskins. We got a sense how tough he was and what he could do. But that's one game, and players have great games all the time, and then they can't sort of match that productivity level. And Joe Burrow clearly did that, and then some to make himself. And I would imagine, let me ask you this, if you can remember back in the 2020 draft, was it late in the process? Because you probably watched a lot of Joe Burrow and Tua and Justin Herbert in the fall, traveling as general manager.
Yes.
At what point, just personally, or maybe talking to your coworkers, did you say, okay, Joe Burrow's he's the best quarterback in this class? Was it late or was it in the fall?
No, it's in the fall, but it's later in the fall because
Okay.
you want to see the consistency. It's not like a one game, flash in the pan. Is it consistent? Now he had some pretty talented receivers around him.
They were okay.
So, but he consistently improved through the year. And I was like, watch first, second game. Hey, this guy is, maybe going to be better. Maybe he'll be a Friday pick. And then by end of October, November, you're saying this dude may be the real deal.
Yeah, and he continues to be the real deal. Tua, of course, got hurt, had a hip injury. That complicated things for his draft prospect. He still went 5th overall. Justin Herbert went 6th. And that class, in terms of the last 4 classes, is the best class. And I don't know if it's close right now. Jordan Love will have a chance this season to start and prove himself now that Aaron Rodgers is gone. All right. Let's talk about this class here. So, who's your favorite quarterback?
Oh, God. Let me go out on a limb here. I'm going to go and, okay, spoiler alert, I'm going to go with Caleb Williams.
So, I'll be honest. Like, I didn't watch any of these.
black, which I never understood that when I saw.
Wait, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
He painted his fingernails.
Oh yeah.
So, which doesn't mean he can't throw the ball. If that helps him throw the ball better, more power to him.
That is historically not a sort of a hard-nosed football thing to do, but
Well,
social media.
The toughest player I've ever been around, Andrew Sendejo, who was but he would knock the heck out of you on the field, and one of the toughest guys I've ever been around. Painted his toenails.
Did you find out why?
No, I didn't want to know.
Yeah. No, look, I will say, like, he wasn't the most physically gifted player on the football field, but he was incredibly tough, and that'll get you a long way. What do you got here, Debo? Yeah, so if you're watching on YouTube, Debo has Caleb's both hands, paints his fingernails. The American flag, it looks like the German flag, but I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a skyline.
It's a skyline.
Skyline. Oh, you know the details, but yeah. Has a bullseye on his index finger, and he can sling it. He could wear, Hulk hands if he wanted to. If he played that way, no one cares. So I didn't watch any of these guys in the spring because we had other things to occupy our mind with. So it's always fun when you watch them closely. I mean, I watched USC play on Saturdays, but in terms of trying to study these players, and it became clear pretty quickly that he is very, very special. And late in the season, he had the hamstring injury and still played, toughed it through that. And when I wrote this comp down, I was like, oh, I can't wait for Rick to crush this comp. And before we give the comps, let's talk. Tell me what you like about his game.
Yeah, just his size, his athleticism. He's a dynamic playmaker. Defensive.
Wait, let me stop here, Rick. Sorry to interrupt. The unofficial 6'1", 215. So now, because he's taller than Bryce, you love him?
I love Bryce, whatever he was.
Right.
I'm just saying to the 215 pounds.
Yeah, he's thick.
That's thickly built.
Go ahead.
So defenses are going to have to account for his ability to make plays with his legs. Very strong arm. I mean, you see him roll to the left, roll to the right, do off-schedule throws, and he's throwing the ball 60 yards down the field. He can make all the NFL throws plus whatever he has to do. Excellent making off-schedule type throws. Mm-hmm. I think the two areas that he needs to improve, in my opinion, are just cutting down the turnovers, because he does get a little careless with the ball and will throw it up for grabs at times, a la in the Pac-12 championship game. He was taking him down through an interception at the end of the game there. And a little bit what I saw out of Bryce Young in his junior year, he has a tendency to kind of hold the ball and let things happen instead of trying to quickly get through his progressions and reads. He's a little bit of a rodeo Joe type at times.
That's like that.
Of, maybe going through the progressions, getting the ball out of his hands, and some footwork technique wise, just when he's in the pocket, he's so good at making, torquing his body, rolling to the left, to the right, throwing the ball off balance, but just working with his footwork and technique when he does sit in the pocket. But there's no question about the release, the quickness, the arm strength, everything you need. This guy is definitely going to be, in my opinion, the number one overall pick at this point. But he does have some things that he needs to work on, just like we all do. Like you taking your computer on vacation to do a podcast.
I should do it. Debo didn't even give me the opportunity to say I could do that. He just penciled in Josh's name, probably because he thinks I work too hard, which I appreciate, Debo. Thank you. God. Once again, I think you're cheating off my paper. Here are my notes for weaknesses for Caleb, and they're very few. His footwork is sort of messy. Like, it's all over the place. He's such a great athlete that it's not, and I don't know if that's just a Lincoln Riley thing. I don't remember Kyler's footwork off the top of my head, or Jalen Hurts' footwork off the top of my head. But he is incredibly athletic. He does hold the ball too long, and I said at times because his receivers struggle to get open, but also because it felt like Bryce always tries to make the big play, but Bryce didn't force the ball quite as much. I felt like it wasn't much sort of sandlot football. It felt like with Bryce, it was much more structured, and I mean it in the best possible way when talking about the way Caleb plays. And I wrote, sometimes he comes off his first read when it's open because he's looking for the big play, and sometimes that ends up in plays that could have gone for more yardage, but end up as sacks or maybe 5-yard gains instead of 7 or 8 yard gains, something like that. The athleticism, insane in the open field. You mentioned the subtle movements in the pocket in terms of avoiding pass rushers. And then the last thing I'd like to see him get the checkdowns sooner on occasion. But everything else, I mean, this guy, tell me your comp, and that way I can just tell you that was my comp too.
Yeah, I said Patrick Mahomes, but he was better than Patrick Mahomes, and I even put him in. At this point, when you watch Patrick Mahomes and you watched him, he is ahead of Patrick Mahomes. And I also had a little comparison to a Bryce Young type playmaker down the field as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I think that's fair. And he throws it. One of the things you see with these quarterbacks this time of year is that they're really accurate on the quick throws, the quick screens, even to the field side, or maybe the slants and the ends, and they struggle on deep balls. Caleb's deep ball touch, it feels like almost like Russ Wilson in his prime. It just falls out of the sky and hits a wide receiver in the hands. It has enough air on it. That's one of the things we talked about after Will Levis' pro day. He sometimes struggled to put air into the ball and sort of layer it to the second and third levels. And Caleb Williams is so good at doing that, and doing it, as you noted, on these off-platform throws with guys in his face. He doesn't cower from pressure. He'll take a hit if it means completing a pass. And sometimes you wish he'd take the previous read just to check it down instead of trying to make the big play. But as BMAC likes to say, you'd rather say woe than sick 'em when you're talking about your players on the football field. And he likes to get after it. A lot would have to happen. I don't never say never, but a lot would have to happen for him not to be QB1, I think.
Yeah. And we'll talk about our next cat coming up here shortly. But this guy right now is clearly the number one overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, he's special. And now you understand a little easier, though when he came in at the time, it seemed to be clear why Lincoln Riley benched Spencer Rattler for Caleb Williams at Oklahoma a few years ago when he was a freshman. And he came in and jump-started that team, and it was certainly fun to watch. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back. Before we do that, let me say this. QB1 clearly. He's going first overall. Now,
yes.
Let me ask this question. I know you're going to get angry, but someone somewhere's thinking it. Maybe me, maybe not. If you're a general manager or an owner and you know your football team isn't very good.
No. Don't even say it.
I know it's impossible to do. A lot of conspiratorial things have to happen for it to line up. But, I feel like it's almost like Major League at the time. You get the Major League, the movie, the owner trying to tank so she can sell the football or sell the team. All right. Take a quick break then. Rick doesn't want to talk about the real issues facing this sport. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about a few more guys on this list and another guy who perhaps could overtake Caleb Williams as the best quarterback.
Get breaking news.
Big news coming out of the NFL today.
Highlights and instant reactions.
The largest final round comeback in Ford championship history. We're down to the final four.
I just want to take time to analyze greatness.
Talk winners and losers with a guy who's already a big winner.
CBS Sports HQ. It's all sports all day long.
All right, Rick. Caleb Williams is our consensus number one quarterback in this class, likely the first player drafted 10-ish months from now. Both of us have comped him to Patrick Mahomes. And, since Patrick Mahomes came out in 2017, there have been a lot of comps to Patrick Mahomes that were unfair to the players that had to deal with that. This one feels as close as you're going to get. The next player on this list, quarterback, University of North Carolina, Drake Maye. He more fits the traditional mold, of what a quarterback, quote unquote, looks like, in that he's 6'4", 220. Caleb Williams unofficially is a 4.54 guy. Unofficially, Drake Maye is a 4.78 guy. Both these guys are really good in the open field. Even though Drake Maye is 6'4", and looks like a pocket passer, he's pretty athletic, and our comps reflect that, and we'll get to that in a second. Tell me what you like about Drake Maye, UNC, whose brother, by the way, played basketball at UNC.
Yeah, well, before we get on to Drake Maye, the game, because Devo put a lot of effort into putting this show together, and you forgot as a host.
But I forget.
What game are you looking forward to?
Oh, shucks. Thank you.
3. And my response to Caleb Williams was the Utah game, because they always have great defenses. He lost twice to Utah last year, a 43-42 shootout during the season at Utah. And then in the Pac-12 championship game, they got beat pretty bad. So that would be the game that I'm anxious to see how Caleb Williams responds to me, not only the best defense in the Pac-12, but one of the best defenses in the country. Checkbox, Steve-Bo. I'm here to help.
Thank you. I'm glad you caught that because that is that's important. So, and I'll mention quickly Caleb Williams. I put three games down because I can't follow instructions. Colorado, because I want to see what that looks like. Coach Prime, as you make the face. Shadur Sanders, Coach Prime's son, will be the quarterback there. Washington, which has Michael Penix Jr. against Caleb Williams, and then finally the Oregon game, which is Bo Nix. So those games.
But you really put some thought into it when you want to see what he did last year against a very good defense. And
I'm going to watch all of his games, but these are the ones I want to see how the two quarterbacks going head-to-head matchup.
The Utah game?
I do. It's on my list.
Okay.
You already mentioned it.
Yeah. Well, you should have put that on the top.
I forgot about it altogether. Thank God you were here.
Yeah, revenge game. But
revenge game. Oh, there it is. All right, let's go to Drake Maye now. And this time I'll remember the games that we should keep an eye on. I think we had similar games here too, but you may find something to complain about there as well. So tell me, Drake Maye, 6'4", 220, incredibly athletic. We'll get to the comp in a second, but what do you like about Drake?
Yeah, love his size, love his athleticism for his size. He's not Caleb Williams athlete, but he's more than athletic enough.
Yep.
He can buy a second chance in the pocket. He has excellent vision down the field. He can see over top of the offensive lineman. He has top arm talent that can make all the throws at the next level. He can squeeze the ball in tight windows. You see him put a lot of balls in tight windows. Played very, very well in the bowl game against Oregon. I thought that was one of his better games. I saw him play live in Miami. He did throw 2 interceptions that game, but you can just see the command, and you can just tell he was different than everyone else on the field. And both those interceptions, when he forces the ball, and a couple of interceptions that he makes is because of forced throws down the field. But during that game, you've seen the deep ball accuracy, just makes impact type plays and game-changing type throws. I think this guy is number 2, and I think he's a close 1. I don't think he's better than Caleb yet, but it'll be interesting to see how the race starts from today until draft day. But I think he's a franchise-type quarterback as well.
Yeah, that's the thing. I sound shocked that maybe you have him closer than maybe I do. But again, it's July 6, 2023. A lot can change. You just talked about Joe Burrow. He was on no one's radar. Zach Wilson was on no one's radar really this time during their heading into their final years in college football. One of the things that concerns me about Drake, and we just talked about this with Caleb, the footwork is all over the place. And again, I don't know if that's a function of the offense, because a lot of the complaints you hear when you talk to teams and coaches even about the UNC system is that it's pretty simplified and sometimes hard to get a read on how that's going to translate. That's not Drake Maye's fault. Certainly, but that's just something to keep an eye on. I thought that he gets through his reads perhaps better than anyone in the draft class we've talked about so far.
I'd agree.
Yeah, there's some quarterbacks that I like that I watch, and I would like to see more in terms of them doing that. And the athleticism you talked about, the arm strength you talked about, the size. He probably needs to gain 10, 15 pounds at 215. I don't know. He's a little slight of frame. You don't want him taking hits. But it's hard not to like what he has done and what he is going to have the possibility of doing. And one of the things that I enjoyed about watching this, and maybe this is because our buddy Pete Prisco hasn't gotten involved yet and then falls in love with the guy and then makes you hate that guy. But I've enjoyed watching these players because they're really good players and they're making plays and there are not a lot of head-scratching mistakes that leave you wondering why am I hearing person X say this about this player that I'm not seeing. And it is somewhat scary that you and I are both on the same page so far. Who is your comp for Drake Maye?
I'm going to go and say a not quite as good yet, but a Trevor Lawrence type is what I thought he was. More Trevor Lawrence, maybe a little Daniel Jones. I see some Daniel Jones in him, which I know somehow you came up with that, but I won't like ruin your thunder here. But I'm going to lean more towards Trevor Lawrence type. Just because
Trevor Lawrence a little rich for me. Although Trevor Lawrence's senior or his final season, his junior year, he had some ups and downs for sure. And I
just say it because this kid's movement skills reminded me a little of Trevor. His length, his arm talent. That's the first guy that popped into my head.
You think he has as good an arm as Trevor?
I think that he does. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll be honest. Sometimes I struggle when you watch like the sort of the all 22 view. Struggle at sort of gauging arm strength. I have to sometimes see it, like on the broadcast version.
I'm going off because I did have an opportunity to see him play live.
Right.
And I didn't have any question about the arm strength. Watching the ball come out.
Okay. That makes me feel better because obviously I got a better sense when we went to the pro days as well. If we're lucky enough to do that again, you can certainly get a better sense. Debo, do you know Drake Maye's brother? His name?
Luke Maye.
Yeah, Debo's the basketball guy. If you tell me where Luke Maye is playing basketball right now, I will give you 200 Rick Spielman bucks.
Can I give you the country?
Yeah, give me the country.
Japan.
He, according to Wikipedia, is playing in Spain. I don't even know he's playing in the first division, but he helped UNC win the national title a few years ago. He's 26 now. Really good athlete, and clearly I think his brother Drake might be a better athlete. But anyway, so you and I both like him. Let's talk about games that we're interested in watching Drake Maye play, and I'll let you go first so I don't stomp on your selections.
Yeah, I really want to see him in a rematch against Clemson this year. In that game, in the ACC championship game, he didn't throw any touchdowns and threw 2 interceptions. So I think Clemson, you look at quarterback versus quarterback, which I don't understand because they're not playing against each other. So
but you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You get 2.
Yeah, I know but I try to look at who has very good defenses and who they're going to have to. Maybe if they struggled some last year against that defense, they get an opportunity to prove a point this year. So I had the Clemson game, which I believe is November 18th, as a rematch for him and see if he can play better than he did in that ACC championship game.
Yeah, that Clemson game is a good game because they have a lot of dudes on defense, like a lot of dudes, and that always seems to be the case. The quarterback situation will be different in that DJ Uiagalelei is now at Oregon State. So we'll see how that sorts itself out. But that's a great call. I went more QB versus QB because I know you love it. South Carolina is a game that I had circled because I want to see Spencer Rattler continue to improve. I think he made incremental improvements last year in his first year at South Carolina. Miami, that's the game you went to last year. I want to see what Tyler Van Dyke can do. Not a great athlete.
I know, but how do you justify that statement? I still can't get that wrapped around my head. Just like when we did that list that one time, I don't understand. I don't want to go redig old bones that we had buried that still.
Yeah, you already buried me.
And but this one I can't comprehend. I apologize.
Well, I think part of it is I want to see like an exciting football game, and I want to see if, for example, Drake Maye comes down the field and gets UNC up 14-0. What does Spencer Rattler do? How does he respond in terms of keeping his team in it? If he throws an interception, does he drop his head? So I want to see sort of the both sides competing aspect of it. You want to see good versus good offense versus good defense that causes the quarterback to have to prove he can do things that he's going to have to do at the next level.
Yes, that's common sense to me.
You can do both. So what I'm hearing is that you're not going to watch any tape of Drake Maye against South Carolina, Miami, and Duke.
Now, why wouldn't I do that?
Well, that's all I'm doing. Those are games
the point was, if you follow Debo's instruction, which is unclear, what match up one game that you're looking forward to next year?
And that's what I selected.
Back and looked at the game that he probably struggled in, a game that is going to have very good defensive talent, and how is he going to respond this year after not playing maybe his best game last year?
And I appreciate your thoughts that you put into your decision to come up with a game that you were interested in. Well, you said that Drake Maye and Caleb were close, so clearly top 5 pick for Drake Maye as well.
Yes, no question.
Okay. What'd I say? I think
it's going to be 1-2, just like we saw Bryce and CJ Stroud this year.
Is it a stretch to say that Caleb plus Drake are better than Bryce plus CJ in terms of what we might see the next level as rookies when you're 2? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think so too.
July, whatever date this is.
July 6th as we do this. Yeah. No, I think that's right. Okay. All right. So you're trying to make us disagree, but we're agreeing, and I think it's rubbing you the wrong way. I get it.
Very irritating.
I get it. Could be worse. You could be agreeing with old Petey Prisco.
That's even more irritating.
All right, number 3 on our aggregated list. And let me ask you, is Bo Nix your number 3 quarterback?
No, he's my number 4 quarterback.
He's my number 4 quarterback as well. And we'll circle back to our individual lists later. But number 3 on the old aggregate Rick and Ryan list, Bo Nix, transfer from Auburn.
How does it become number 3 if he was both number 4 on our list?
Oh, boy. Sorry I brought it up, Debo. Do you want to explain?
Because there wasn't any other consensus on the list with your 2 other picks. Bo Nix was one of 3, along with Caleb and Drake Maye, that you guys did agree were within the top 5.
Does that work, Rick?
No.
Okay.
But go ahead.
And to be clear, because Quinn Ewers is on your list, he's on my list. I just haven't watched Quinn yet. I'm excited to watch him, and I think he's hopefully going to have a great season. He got off to a strong start last year before he got hurt in the Alabama game. So don't read too much into that. But Bo Nix, transfer from Auburn, where, look, let's be honest, he didn't play well there for a ton of reasons, not all his fault. Came to Oregon, and he was a pleasant surprise to the point that I thought he had a chance to be a top 100 guy had he decided to come out. Instead, returned to Oregon. And I know that some of the All-Star games, college All-Star games, were hoping that he would come out. He didn't do that. We'll see if he does it this time around. But I think he has a chance to be improve on what he did and maybe go from top 100 to top 75, top 50. How's that strike your fancy?
I'd agree. I don't think he's a first-round pick.
Okay.
But I think he's a Friday guy right now.
All right. So would you even pay attention to, as a general manager, to Bo Nix at Auburn when he's a sophomore? Do you care about that? And you're probably just watching other players and happen to see him, but you're not having conversations about him, right?
No,
Yeah.
We're moving on. Starting with how he played last year and then how he finishes up this year.
Okay, so what did you think of how he played last year?
Oh, boy. I think you got a better version of Bo Nix than what you saw at Auburn. If you watch Georgia or Stanford, then you're going to hate him. Although at Stanford, he had the 80-yard TD run, which shows his athleticism and speed. He played his best game, in my opinion, against UCLA. And that's the game that really caught my attention. You see all the athletic traits, the arm talent to make all the throws. He can create plays off schedule. His accuracy was very good that game, and everything you want in a quarterback you saw against UCLA. There was a 2-play sequence that summed up for me Bo Nix versus Utah in the 4th quarter. One play, he rolls to the right, makes a great throw down the field on 2nd and 10 with a lead in the 4th quarter. The next play makes the worst decision I've ever saw, throws a out across the field, and Phillips, the little corner, Nick, that I believe got drafted in the 3rd or 4th round this year, picks him off. So teams, there was a great throw, and then right afterwards he throws a dumb interception. Teams are really going to have to figure out not so much this kid's physical talent, but his decision making, which some of the decisions he makes still leaves me scratching my head at times.
Yeah, it's funny because I watched the Utah and the BYU game, and I made a note on the interception you're talking about. I wrote way too late, and there's a field side throw too. If we're talking about the same thing, easy interception for the defensive back late in the game there. But the things you talk about on the plus side get your attention. He's a good athlete. He throws with anticipation, and he throws accurately down the field. And those are all things that translate. The decision making is one of those things, and I'm sure, and you've talked about this at points, Rick, on the podcast, where you go back, you try to figure out the things that translate for quarterbacks and the things that you miss on quarterbacks. And a lot of that is above the next stuff that is hard to, to sort of put a quantitative number on. So there's no algorithm that you can say, all right, what's Bo Nix going to do in this situation in the NFL? You just have to trust your eyes and experience. And he's gotten better for sure. And I think he has a chance to be, as you talked about, a Friday guy. So a 2nd or 3rd round guy. And he is listed at 6'1", almost 6'2", 225. So he's plenty big enough, unofficial 4'7" guy. And that stuff shows up, his athleticism inside the pocket, his athleticism in space. He's a tough, he'll put his nose down and move the pile on short yardage situations. And his teammates seem to like him, and that's also pretty important. Who was your comp for Bo Nix?
Well, I had a tough one on him, but I went with a much better passer, but similar type athlete as Max Dugan was at TCU. So I kind of went with the athleticism, but said he is a better passer and more accurate passer than Max Dugan.
Yeah, no, I get that. I said Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield isn't the athlete quite at Bo Nix, similar size, and they do some of the things behind the pocket. Similarly, Baker obviously went first overall. Bo Nix isn't going to go first overall. But I see the Max Duggan comp and Baker just basically for his size. And
I don't know what you see at that comp. I can totally disagree with. So
that's fine. We finally got there.
yeah, I don't see it.
Oh, good. So Debo put a poll on Twitter. Who is a better pro comp for Oregon quarterback in 2024 NFL draft prospect? Bo Nix. Max Duggan, 39%. Baker Mayfield, 61%. Oh, so I don't know what that means other than
People like you because they think I mean to you. That's that.
Debo did not put who said what.
I will continue to do these blind polls. I couldn't do it for the first two quarterbacks because you had the same comparisons. So moving forward throughout this series, we'll see who wins these blind polls.
Oh, so that means I win the dollar bet, right? For Max?
Yeah, so Bo Nix will be the #1 overall pick, just like Baker Mayfield.
All right.
Oh
no, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that more people agree with my comp than with your comp. So that means that's $1. Put it in the books, Devo. Wilson up $1 early in the quarterback comps competition. Okay. He's the same size as Baker.
Okay, you got off the size.
Games you want to see Bo Nix show up.
Two I want to see is I want to see the rematch against the Washington Huskies. So we can see him against
Michael Penix
Jr. Going your way. But I want to see him against USC too. I think they're going to have a good defense, and that's going to be a highlight game. See how he handles the pressure in a big game, probably on, I think, going to be on at least big-time regional, potentially national TV.
Yeah, that feels like a national game for sure. By the way, your reasoning for why you want to see Bo Nix in that game sounds a lot like my reasoning for the previous two quarterbacks in their big games.
Not really.
I had both those games on there, and I mentioned Washington State as well, just because, again, another quarterback I'm interested in seeing.
Not Washington State.
What did I say?
Washington State. Again, I correct you.
No, I want to see the Washington State game.
Oh, okay. Oh, because of the little run-around quarterback at Washington State?
Yeah, Cam Ward. I want to see Cameron Ward as well.
Yeah, that'll be a small regional game.
Well, hey, joke's on you. With the first pick, we'll be out there covering the game. So you'll be there watching it with me. So, yeah, I want to see the two games you mentioned, Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, and then Cam Ward in Washington State against Bo Nix, who I'm going to call it now, top 75 pick.
Bo Nix?
Yeah, over under that.
What's 75? Does that get you to the third round?
Yeah, like early third.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'd agree with that.
All right. Golly. Boy, you're going to have to do some serious self-evaluation with all this agreement you're doing with me.
First time we're doing this. I'm sure there'll be coming up.
All right. So let's go to your guy, Quinn Ewers. Quinn was, where did he rank on your list?
Third.
Third. Okay. So he wasn't on my list. I talked about it. I haven't watched him yet, but I'm looking forward to that. I think he's going to be a really fun player to watch. Quinn Ewers, you have him on your list. So tell me what you like about him, because I haven't seen him other than watching him last year before he got hurt.
Yeah, no. This guy, Quinn, has very good size. I think he's a good enough athlete. He's not anywhere near the Bo Nixes of the world or the Williams or the Mayes of the world, but he's good enough. He's not going to beat you with his feet. He's not going to keep defensive coordinators up late at night, but he can move in a pocket. He does have good enough arm talent. I don't think he has an exceptionally strong arm, but he has a good enough arm. I watched Alabama and Oklahoma were the two games I watched on him to see this. He was very poor versus TCU in the third game I watched, because that's the rule. Is when you're going to talk about players, watch 3 games.
Yep.
On him, which you didn't do, and follow the rules as usual. He sees a field. I think he can make quick decisions. He can get through his progressions. I think he needs to improve his throwing mechanics, which will improve his accuracy. He does have some accuracy and some deep ball accuracy issues down the field. And then he makes some poor decisions as well. Now, he doesn't have a cannon for an arm, but when he's in rhythm and timing, he's pretty good. He'll force throws into coverage. He missed time with a clavicle injury after the Alabama game. The Alabama game in the first quarter, before he got the clavicle, he was lights out. I believe.
Yeah, he was giving them some real trouble.
9 of 12 for 130 yards, 34 yards in the first quarter. He needs to definitely build off flashes that he showed last season, but he's still too inconsistent to consider in the first round. But if he can improve off of that, it sounds like during spring ball, he held off the competition with Manning, who came in as the best quarterback prospect in a long time. So he seemed to has held him off and will be the starting quarterback, but he has to have a very good year to get in the first round conversation. I did not see him as a first round talent.
So Arch Manning is the latest Manning to come through the old pipeline here, and there are a ton of expectations for him. And Quinn Ewers, as you mentioned, was able to hold him off in spring ball. We'll see how that goes. Plays well, won't be an issue. If he struggles, we'll be having some conversations. Does Quinn Ewers get drafted before or after Bo Nix?
I would say right now I had him just ahead of Bo.
Okay.
But that can change quickly.
For sure. And who was your Quinn Ewers comp?
I reminded me of watching Kenny Pickett his junior year.
Because Kenny Pickett, he's another guy. That's another name we didn't talk about, but coming into the reason he came back to school is because he had day 3 grades.
Right. And I think Ewers did enough, but he reminded me of just good enough athlete, just good enough arm. But then Kenny Pickett lit it up his senior year and ended up being the only first round pick that year.
Right.
And I think Ewers reminded me a little bit of Kenny Pickett. Now, hopefully he can make the leap Pickett did this year, but that's who my comp was.
Okay. No, I like it. And the game that you are interested in seeing Quinn Ewers.
See if he can make it through an Alabama game. They go to Alabama this year. Last year it was in Texas, but they go to Alabama on September 9th. And so that'll be a real big game for him. And the way he played last year in that first quarter, I'm anxious to see how he performs. And that is a tough stadium to play in.
It's funny because I was talking to my buddy who's a huge Alabama fan, and I said, man, because I'll ask you, who's the quarterback for Alabama?
I don't know yet.
That's the answer that you get whoever you ask. I said, is there any chance that Texas is actually favoring that game? He goes, well, it's so tough to play in Alabama. Is that the first home game of the year? If it's not, it's probably the second.
Yeah. I don't know, but I know it'll be an electric atmosphere down there.
Absolutely. So that'll be another test for Quinn Ewers to see how he does there. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll hit the last few names on our list here of quarterbacks we're looking forward to watching this fall.
You gonna start the engine sometime soon, Erica?
Do you know the odds of all of us being here at this time? It's improbable, and yet here we are, together.
Hold on to your saddles.
All right, Rick, we're back. We've talked about Caleb Williams out of USC, Drake Maye out of UNC, Bo Nix out of Oregon, and of course, you just talked about Quinn Ewers from Texas. I'm going to go in another direction. This was my QB3. Just some guys that I watched. Riley Leonard, quarterback out of Duke.
There comes one from left field.
So I did the comp especially to get you fired up, so I won't get there yet. But I'm half kidding about this. Like the comp was closer than perhaps I'm letting on. But Riley Leonard is an interesting guy because we don't talk a lot about Duke football, especially after Daniel Jones left the program. He was the number 6 overall pick back in 2019. He didn't struggle necessarily, but he didn't exactly play like a top 6 pick his first 2 years. Brian Dable showed up, and everything seemed to come together. And this year will be probably another step in the right direction for Daniel Jones. Riley Leonard, 6'3.5", 211, so a little slighter frame, could add a few pounds. He's an unofficial 4.52 guy. You see that athleticism on tape. I think he's actually probably more athletic than Drake Maye and not as athletic as Caleb Williams. But I really enjoyed watching him. Now, he doesn't get through his reads like Drake Maye. He seems to lock on to guys, and sometimes he'll try to force balls into situations where maybe if he just checked it down or got to his next read, he'd be a little better off. But he does some things with the football that really get your attention. And the other thing is, and I'm sure you consider this, Rick, when you're playing at Duke, you're not throwing to Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. You're throwing to a bunch of guys that are going to be lawyers and finance guys in a few years. So you have to take that into consideration. And he's throwing these guys open. He throws with anticipation. He throws the ball well down the field. And as I like to say, he layers it really well to the second level in terms of getting it over the first level defenders in front of the cornerbacks. You see that all over the place. And that's what you get excited about. His footwork, again, is a mess, and that seems to be a recurring theme with a lot of these quarterbacks you talked about. Sometimes he can be late getting the ball out in terms of throwing with a little more anticipation. And sometimes you see wide receivers in the middle of the field. There's a first window and a second window. Sometimes he'll just wait a second to try to hit that second window when he could hit it through the first, maybe a little tighter window to try to squeeze it through. We'd like to see him get through his reads better. I talked about that. And sometimes, what else we got here? He will fall into the habit, and I saw this a lot on tape. He'll predetermine the throws because of the pre-snap read, especially he kept throwing this field side quick out. And, by the end of the game, the DB's just sort of sitting on it. He has a really good arm. He has a hose. And I'm going to be interested to see what you think about his arm when you watch him. And who knows, maybe we'll get to see Duke play in person. But I was surprised at how much fun it was to watch him. And I think, again, he's a guy. What is great on him? I have him as a top 32 guy. What are you laughing at?
Nothing. Before we waste CBS money to go watch him play, let me watch him first, and then I'll let you know if it's worth it or not going
Well,
to.
no, we're going to go to the UNC Duke game, so we can kill two birds with one stone, Rick. That's how it works. I was sad to see that Syracuse isn't hosting Duke this year. They're not even playing Duke because I wanted to see him, and they're playing at UNC, so I can't drive down the street to watch either of those guys. But so Rick, we'll get your professional eyes on Riley Leonard. You're going to love him. Trust me. I have a first round grade on him. I really liked him. He had some things he has to work on. Now, if the draft were today, I don't know if he actually goes in the first round, but I'm excited about him. I'm projecting him to have a good season. I think that'll get some people's attention. So that's a player that if you're not a college football fan, especially an ACC fan, maybe even a Duke fan, you probably don't know a lot about. So keep an eye on Riley Leonard as he goes through the season. Again, we saw this with Daniel Jones. Let me ask you, when he was coming out, he had no one the players around him weren't the same players that a lot of the other quarterbacks had the benefit of playing with. How did you suss that out, his ability, and how do you project that to the next level?
Yeah, because of his size, because Daniel Jones did have a strong arm and good arm talent. And so you're trying to project and you're trying to see, because the ACC is good football. It's a Power 5. How he's performing against some of those defenses, especially the top defenses. And you recognize whether the guy is open or not, or the type of talent around him. But Daniel Jones, to me, raised the level of expectations for that team when he was there. It reminded me of when I went and watched Matt Ryan play when Matt Ryan came out. I was at the Virginia Tech game, rainy. It was like a Thursday night game in Virginia Tech, which is a very tough place to play back when Virginia Tech was rolling.
And tough to get to.
And tough to get to in Blacksburg, Virginia. You fly into Roanoke, and then you go through the mountains to get down to the game. But it was Matt Ryan elevated Boston College, because without Matt Ryan, I don't know if they would have won many games. But because of Matt Ryan's ability, and he had no one to help him. Very limited resources around him from a skill set standpoint. But that game, he kept battling back, kept making throws in the rain. And there was no question that Matt Ryan took that program to another level because of Matt Ryan, not the talent around him.
Right. And that's funny you say that, because one of the knocks against Matt Ryan is that he threw a ton of interceptions at BC. Well, it's because he was the only show in town, basically throwing the football to himself. So sometimes you're going to take chances, and either your receiver isn't fast enough, didn't run the right route, whatever. And I think you'd rather see a quarterback take those risks as opposed to playing conservative and just checking the ball down on every single snap.
But there was no question about Matt Ryan's leadership, watching him along the sideline that game, talking to the coaches, talking to the players. He went to each position group up and down during that game, talking to the offensive linemen, talking to the receivers, making the adjustments. It was incredible to see the maturity level of Matt Ryan at the collegiate.
And that's funny you mentioned that, because those are things that you pay attention to that maybe fans or media folks don't, because I asked you about that at the Ohio State Pro Day. When C.J. Stroud was out there cheering on all his teammates because he went last. So for the first hour and a half, he's just watching fat guys, run shuttle drills, and he's out there cheering them on. And I was like, does that matter? You go, yeah, you want to see him out there. You don't want him standing in the corner reading text.
Right. Yeah. But you see it. I mean, that's an indication, but you truly have to see it at games.
Right. All right. So Riley Leonard, you heard it here first. Rick Spielman's QB1. I cannot wait for you to watch him, Rick. I think you're going to like him. So that's our sort of consensus aggregated with the first pick, top 5-ish quarterbacks we're excited to watch, how we have them ranked so far. I'm going to mention some other names here that we've sort of talked about at points, and maybe some names I haven't mentioned, and you can tell me your thoughts on any of these guys that you've seen just in terms of expectations. Michael Penix, he's at Washington now, transferred from Indiana. He's smaller framed, has had some injury issues. I thought he had a good year last year. I think NFL teams want to see a little more. Michael Pratt is an interesting quarterback out of Tulane. I watched him again yesterday. I like him, and he reminds me a little bit of Will Levis without the pressure of being Will Levis. Like, no one's saying he's going to be a top 5 pick. He has a lot of he's incredibly tough. He doesn't have Will Levis's arm strength, but he does a lot of good things on that team. Wasn't asked to do a ton because they had Tyjae Spears running back last year, but he can make some throws. Devin Leary, who transferred from NC State to Kentucky, is another player who has a chance to make a name for himself. I thought he had an opportunity to be a maybe early day 3, late day 2 guy last year had he not gotten injured. He's now going to replace Will Levis at Kentucky. He was actually at the Will Levis and Kentucky Pro Day. In person, he's small. I want to see what he measures at, but that's a concern. Spencer Rattler, we've talked about for what feels like 10 years now. Tyler Van Dyke. Spencer Rattler's at South Carolina now. Tyler Van Dyke's at Miami. He needs to improve on last year where he struggled with injuries. Cam Ward, I just talked about at Washington State. And I'll mention one other name, Rick. Joe Milton at Tennessee, who's going to replace Hendon Hooker. And physically, you feel like you see some Anthony Richardson out there. He is not where Anthony Richardson was even a year ago at this time. He has a long way to go. Michigan transfer, as I mentioned, going to replace Hendon in Tennessee. He started the last few games after Hendon tore his ACL. And I guess I just can't – I'm afraid to think that I would draft Joe Milton with a top 50 pick because he is not Anthony Richardson. Athletically, he may feel that way. He can throw the ball 4,000 miles. But there's just a lot of concerns for me. He's going to have to take huge strides in 2023. Any of those guys stick out to you?
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't have Penix up there a little higher because you liked him in the fall. And,
yeah,
he threw for almost 500 yards in the Apple Bowl when I watched that. And I understand he went through 2 ACLs at Indiana before transferring to Washington. Now, Washington, as a tease for next week, which I did running backs first for some reason instead of receivers, have 2 pretty good receivers. He's got a pretty good cast around him. And they got 2 draftable and 1 probably really high draftable receiver at Washington. So, but I thought this kid improved as a thrower than he showed when he was at Indiana. And I think this kid was on the rise. He reminded me a little bit of Haener.
Okay.
Out of Fresno State. So I'm anxious. I thought he was a better thrower than Haener, but he
has a good arm too.
Yeah, that's who he kind of reminded me of. So you surprised me a little bit that you didn't want to talk about him today. But
yeah, no, that's fair. I did like him, and I don't think NFL teams are as crazy about him as I am. And is part of that size and injury history?
Yeah, a little bit. And I think like I said, I'm not saying he's a first-round talent, but he knows how to play the game. At least I thought. And be interesting to see where he ends up in this stack. But all these guys that you mentioned, there's someone that's going to rise from this heap of quarterbacks.
Yep.
to get up there in that mix as who's the third quarterback off the board.
So a couple things also to keep in mind. Devin Leary is going to be 24 at the start of the season. Bo Nix, he's 23 and a half right now. So these guys are older. Trying to think, how old is Joe Milton? Is 23 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. Penix got to be older.
I'm trying to find Penix's age here. Oh, here he is. Michael Penix is, he just turned 23. So, okay. He's played forever, but he must have started when he was younger. But again, 23 is still, we were giving Kenny Pickett a hard time for being 24 when he was drafted. A lot of these guys in this class, because it came back, because of COVID, they're going to be a little longer in the tooth. But you've said before that at quarterback, that's a little less of a concern. Have you seen Joe Milton at all?
No, just I saw the YouTube of him throwing the ball 150 yards.
Yeah. So David Lewis in the comments, actually, I was going to mention Shedeur Sanders, who transferred from Jackson State to Colorado to follow his dad, obviously. Cam Rising out of he's at Utah. He's a guy, certainly. J.J. McCarthy at Michigan is a guy, certainly. I watched Shedeur yesterday. Again, it's FCS competition, so it's a little harder to get a sense. The footwork's a little sloppy. He has a sort of a weird over-the-top motion. His arm seems to be plenty good. I need to watch more of him. He wasn't asked to do a lot in many of those games because they just steamroll so many of these teams.
And the guy that I liked out of that crew was JJ, because I think he's a tremendous athlete. He's been a winner at Michigan since he's been up there. Needs to get a little better as a passer, but just watching didn't do a complete evaluation on him, but he is one of those very athletic quarterbacks that may find his way getting into the mix if Michigan has another successful year. Perfect Jim Harbaugh type quarterback.
So last year, 14 quarterbacks went in the draft, which is a lot. Drake Holiday also mentions Jordan Travis out of Florida State. Yes, he's obviously on the list. This is the list that we're talking about isn't exhaustive, just players that we've sort of gone through, either I've seen or Rick has seen. And Jaden Daniels should be on that list too as well. So at LSU. So those are two other players that will be in the mix. And this list keeps growing. And my point with the 14 players drafted last year at the quarterback position was a ton. And we might see that again, depending on how these players perform.
I think with some of this list down here that it may be a deeper middle class than last year's middle class.
Right. So I'll ask you this quickly and then we'll get out of here. How many first rounders last year? We had 3 first rounders. We're going to have more or fewer than 3 first rounders in this draft class.
I think there'll be 3, end up being, there's 2 right now, but I think someone's going to rise up and I think there'll end up being 3 before it's said and done.
Yeah, Debo can clip this, and when there's 5, we can look back and say, yeah, this is why you have no idea what's going on in July, trying to predict 10 months out before a college football season. All right, here we go. Look at this list. If you're watching on YouTube, Rick, we're going through the divisions and which of these teams might be in play for Caleb or Drake or my guy Riley or whoever your favorite quarterback is.
This is the worst list I've ever seen.
This is just the divisions. This is just the divisions. So we're going to go division by division.
Oh.
He's so angry he got Devo.
Rick just learned what the AFC East is.
Yay. Next.
So Josh Allen, will he be there next? Yes, he'll be there. So I think the 2, assuming health, I think that the Jets for me are the biggest concern in the East about the quarterback situation. Aaron Rodgers wins the Super Bowl, maybe retires, or if he doesn't do what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but you're talking about, the rules are not clear on
We're just going through the divisions about teams that could possibly need a quarterback. That's all.
I thought it was for Caleb Williams. Then you just
he's going to be the first quarterback taken.
Right.
So in general,
it may need quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Okay. Just tell me the rules and I'll play by the rules.
All right. I didn't mean to sneak this on you. So teams that may need quarterbacks. If you had to pick one team in the AFC East, I'm going with the Jets.
I'm going to go with New England.
Yeah, I could see that too. My guy Mike Jones has to play well. All right, in the AFC North, excuse me.
None.
Hopefully the Bengals trade Joe Burrow to the Steelers, and then they'll need a quarterback, and that's not going to happen. So Lamar signed his deal. Kenny Pickett's in year 2. There are huge expectations there. Joe Burrow is not going anywhere. He's about to get paid. So, again, Deshaun Watson feels like the answer. Maybe there is no answer in this division, but they can't get out from under that contract.
Nope.
All right. Everyone's staying in the AFC North. AFC South.
Tennessee. Tennessee. I picked Tennessee.
Oh, you should. Well, they just drafted Will Levis.
That's fine. Tennessee. I picked Tennessee.
Okay. All right. So they have Malik. They have Will Levis, and they're going to still have to go after a quarterback because Ryan Tannehill, either way, feels like he's done. Okay. Well, the AFC West, I think, is pretty easy. And I'll let you take the answer because I'll take the other answer that you won't even let leave your lips.
Denver.
You're not saying Denver. Stop it. They can't get out from under that contract either. I think it's Vegas, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And they have Jimmy G, injury history. I heard they didn't even really want Jimmy G early in the free agency process. They didn't draft a quarterback, obviously, in the first round. So I think they could be in the market for a quarterback.
Yep.
All right. NFC East. Yeah, boy. So Washington feels like the easy answer. Might Dallas be in that conversation?
Maybe, but I don't see that. I think they're all in on Dak.
And I think that Daniel Jones, if he gets his deal, he's clearly not going anywhere. But maybe there's a situation where, he has to peace out and they have to revisit that. So Jalen Hurts is safe, Debo.
We sure, after Rick's comments last week, we sure that Jalen's safe?
Yeah, he's safe. He ain't going anywhere. Noted Jalen Hurts hater, Rick Spielman. You love Jalen Hurts. It's one of your favorite guys.
Jalen Hurts, I told you, is my favorite interview I've ever had.
All right, NFC North.
Water.
I think Chicago. I think they're fine. I think Justin Fields will, if he's just slightly better than last year, you stick around. Green Bay feels like an obvious answer, and then Kirk Cousins because his contract's up.
Yeah, I'd say all three of those.
Okay, all right.
Maybe all four. Who knows?
No, they have Hendon and Jared Goff's going to have I think Jared Goff quietly is the best quarterback in this division.
Yeah.
Is that crazy?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I think Cousins is better than Goff, but I would give Goff. I think they're all in on Goff.
Yeah. All right. And finally, we have two more. The NFC South, excuse me. Baker's in Tampa Bay now, Baker Mayfield. Bryce Young is in Carolina. He's not going anywhere. Derek Carr is now the quarterback in New Orleans, and Des Ridder has a lot to prove with a lot of weapons around him in Atlanta. Where are you going?
Tampa.
And
Atlanta. But
Tap in Atlanta. I think that's it.
Tampa.
I think that Derek Carr will get a couple of years there.
Yep.
It's less stressful in New Orleans than it was in Vegas, I feel like, for him. All right, and finally, the NFC West. So, I mean, the 49ers have 27 quarterbacks. You don't know which one's going to be healthy enough to play. Seattle, my guy Geno Smith. Hopefully he continues to play like he did. Matthew Stafford feels like he could be on the way out because of retirement injuries. And then Kyler Murray, new coach, new GM, coming off the ACL. Where are you going?
I'm going to Arizona. I would go Rams. I don't know how long Stafford's going to play.
Right.
And I would potentially even go Seattle because Geno signed a short-term deal where if they do go quarterback, he's got a chance to sit behind Geno and learn. I don't think that's the answer.
If they had a situation
back
right, if they had a situation next draft where they had the number 5 overall pick and Drake May sitting there, that's a different conversation. If you're not sold on Will Levis or Anthony Richardson or whomever, Arizona could end up having the first and second overall pick, depending on how poorly they play, by way of the Texans. So that's also something to keep an eye on. But that is it, Rick.
And the Rams actually have their first round pick next year.
Oh,
wow, that's a shocker.
The first time in the Sean McVay era that they've had their first round pick, and he arrived there in 2017, I believe. All right, Rick, that's a wrap on the old podcast there.
That was pretty good.
Not too bad.
It's going to be a little bit more difficult as we go through the other positions. And once I get clarification on the rules, am I doing 25 guys? Are we having a 3-hour podcast? Are we doing, Debo's combining positions, and it's a mess.
Well, I will say I just looked on the schedule that Debo sent out 2 weeks ago, and next week it is clearly marked that we're doing wide receivers, and the week after that it is clearly marked that we're doing running backs and tight ends.
Correct. So are we doing 5 running backs and 5 tight ends? Are we doing 2 running backs and 3 tight ends?
Well, I'll be on vacation that week, so I don't care what you do.
I will give you a teaser when we get down to the running backs, since I just did.
He did them all. You're crazy. Why'd you do all those running backs?
Right now, Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs in this draft coming up.
Okay.
I did not give one of these running backs a first-round grade.
I was going to ask you that. Does any running back go in the first round?
Not in my opinion, off what I just evaluated.
All right. There you have it. So tune in for 2 weeks when Rick hosts to talk about that, and you can see that in detail. But for now, thank you guys for joining. Thank you for joining us in the comments, and Debo, thank you for putting those comments up there, because it was good to talk about those players. We weren't looking to leave anyone out, just guys that we haven't gotten around to watching yet, but that we are excited to see. So appreciate that. And if you don't mind, as always, take a second to give us a thumbs up and like the podcast and subscribe, a 5-star review. And Rick, thank you as always. Debo, thank you for producing. And thank you guys for watching and listening. And we'll see you guys next week.